First of all, please introduce yourself to our followers.
Hi, I'm Michael Spreeman, and I am the founder of Ravenscroft Pianos.
Hi, I'm Gerhard Buchbauer, and I'm the owner and founder of Prime Studio.
Hi, I'm Björn Heitzer, and I'm the chief engineer and co-founder of Prime Studio.
When did you guys first decide to become professionals in music business?
I first decided to become a professional in the music business when I decided I wanted to become a full-time piano technician in 1976. However, I've always had a real keen interest in music. I started playing piano when I was 5 years old, and I played in band in high school and college, so I've always had a keen interest for the music industry.
Taking the step into music business already was my plan during law studies at the university. I dedicated my whole spare time at that time to music and had myself a rock band project going on, did a lot of songwriting, recordings for different people in various locations. And that was actually a few years before Björn and me met the first time in the studio. Björn worked as a freelance engineer there, and we had a lot of fun during the session. Since we kept in contact and started doing music productions together. Things have grown since then, step by step, until I founded my own studio business, Prime Studio.
The decision was made in my youth. Since my father was a professional musician, I basically grew up in this business. After finding out that I wasn't good enough as a musician, I decided to switch the sides and look for and find the way behind the live and studio mixing consoles of the world. 10 years later, I met Gerhard during a production in a studio near Munich. And a little later, the idea of Prime Studio was slowly born. Today, over 30 years after my decision to enter the professional music business, you can find me here, in Prime Studio.
Michael, can you tell us a little about the history of Ravenscroft Pianos?
I met Bob Ravenscroft in the 1980s when I was head piano technician at Arizona State University. I was servicing his pianos, and we ended up becoming very good friends. The result of that was that I eventually rebuilt and redesigned a concert grand for Bob to cater it to his specific way of playing. And then fast forward to the year 2004, I was servicing Bob's piano, and just a side note, when I finished the piano, we also had the piano refinished, so I put Ravenscroft on the fall board instead of the name that was there originally. It was meant to be a joke, but on the other hand, who knew what would transpire later on with that gesture? Anyway, in 2004, I had just finished servicing the piano, and Bob and I were talking, and he said, "Michael, have you ever thought about building your own pianos?" And I said, "Well, Bob, usually guys like me don't sit around dreaming of building pianos because it's cost prohibitive, for one thing. The other thing is it's quite a quantum leap to go from being a piano technician to literally building a new piano and bringing it to market." Well, Bob said that he and his wife had talked quite a bit about this, and that they felt like I should really seriously consider building pianos. To the point where they were willing to help support me financially to get things started. So they simply asked that I consider doing this and give it a little time and get back to them, which I did. And in 2004, Ravenscroft Pianos was established here in Scottsdale, Arizona.
Can you guys tell us a bit about the Prime Studio philosophy?
In music business, as well as in film production, it's all about capturing and transporting feelings and emotions. So our philosophy is to kindle these feelings and emotions from the very beginning of a production. This is by offering our customers a place where they can get away from daily routines to be able to fully concentrate on their performances.
When it comes to production, we leave little to chance. Everything is prepared and tested for production in advance. The only thing the artists have to take care of is the setup and tuning of their own instruments. If the artists don't carry their own instruments, we will have already prepared our studio own instruments to their needs. Our philosophy? Be ready for the production before the artists even know that they want to produce.
Which artists have you worked with so far?
We've been working together with a lot of wonderful musicians and producers like Matt Rawlings, Greg and Matt Bisonet, Mick Rogers, Michael Landau, Kirk Andre Wilson, Nick Smith, Jack Ainley, George Massenberg, and many, many others.
Ravenscroft Pianos is famous for its 275 Grand Piano. What is the story behind the 220 Grand Piano?
Indeed, a 9-foot piano is the flagship of many companies and manufacturers. And this is because the 9-foot pianos are designed to perform in large halls. So as a result, we try to have a lot of projection and volume, as well as dynamic range. But 9-foot pianos tend to be specifically designed. I'm not going to say it's a one-trick pony, but they just do well in large spaces. On the other hand, the Model 220, which is our 7'3" grand piano, to me is the ideal size. I mean, it's just so much more versatile than a 9-foot piano. It can sit in a mix in a recording studio. It plays really well, like in venues like churches. It's the ideal in-home piano. To me, the Model 220 is absolutely one of my favorite pianos.
Prime Studio is well known for its collection of rare analog audio gear. Tell us how that collection started.
While being on the lookout for some vintage Neve preamps for a specific production, it happened shortly after opening up the studio in 2008 that we became an offer for a classic Neve 80 series console. It was in very good technical shape and with a tremendous recording history. This specific 8016 desk came from the former Caribou Ranch studios in Colorado. And after doing quite a few phone conversations with Mike from Vintage King, we decided to acquire and refurbish this beautiful sounding piece of recording history. That's how we started bringing in the mojo of historical vintage recording gear to Prime Studio.
Prime Studio is also known for tremendous audio plugins. When have you started developing plugins with Acustica audio?
We first gave it a thought in 2014 to step into music software business too, when we were working extensively on one of our historic pieces of gear. We did some recordings on the EMI TG12345 Mark Q console and thought how great it would be to preserve the unique sound of this iconic console which had shaped so many characteristic hit recordings. Always having in mind also that someday it might be very, very hard to nearly impossible to get any spare parts for this kind of custom equipment anymore. So it came that we checked connections to software guys in our network and got in contact with Giancarlo Del Sordo from Acustica Audio. And since then we have developed several software plugins with Acustica Audio based on some rare historical gear we have here at the studio.
Michael, when and why did Ravenscroft Pianos decide to join the digital music market too?
It was actually an interesting decision for me to decide to come into the digital marketplace and sample our pianos. I grew up in a time when, let's say, the 1970s and 1980s in my career as a piano technician, where it was the beginning and the onslaught, if you will, of electronic keyboards. And at the time, there was almost a battle between the digital keyboards and the acoustic piano manufacturers, and it was this whole them against us thing and who's going to win. Well, again, by the 1970s, it was pretty clear that there wasn't really a winner and a loser, that in fact, the digital industry was here to stay. So when I was approached to sample our piano, my thinking was, okay, digital pianos are here to stay no matter what we do. So a lot of kids and beginning adults are taking piano lessons, and they're doing this on little keyboards. And as many of you know, the piano samples on these keyboards can be something less than desirable. So I thought, well, if we can record a 9-foot concert grand and then follow that with our Model 227'3" grand, and we have an awesome recording of a really decent acoustic piano sound, I almost feel like this would be doing a favor to the piano industry. Because if you think about it, the kids and the students that are learning to play on keyboards, if they're listening to a really nice acoustic piano sample, that's the sound that's going to be being programmed into their brain as they're studying piano. So my thinking is that eventually what they're going to want is not another digital piano, but if we're providing them with a super high quality sample of a grand piano, that eventually they're going to want to buy an acoustic grand piano. So from that standpoint, I was able to get enthusiastic about the projects and coming into the digital age, if you will.
How do you think NAMM Show in Anaheim takes a strong role in connecting people in music business?
Yes, the NAMM Show absolutely plays a significant role in bringing people together in the music industry. For us, it was a game changer. When we started exhibiting our pianos at the NAMM Show, it was just this incredible opportunity to have hundreds of people play the piano in one day. So you can imagine in the course of a 4-day show, just the amount of feedback and the amount of exposure that we had from the pianos. We love to get this feedback because it helps us when we go back to the design room and we analyze the pianos and make decisions on any changes or upgrades that we're going to make. Another really cool thing that happened for us at the NAMM Show was just the gathering all of these high-end artists and pianists that came and pretty much affirmed what we're doing, that they loved our sound and they loved the feel of the piano. And a result of that was what we like to call the NAMM fam. We've just met all of these wonderful, warm, loving people that we now just consider family. And man, I wouldn't trade that for anything.
How did you meet the guys from Ravenscroft Pianos?
Right after a few years in business, we once got an email from a piano manufacturing company out of Phoenix, Arizona. They were asking for an appointment at the studio to do a personal visit of the location to see if it would fit for a future music production. We nearly couldn't believe that an American company would be interested in doing recordings in a studio far over the pond. And therefore, we were very excited to welcome Michael Sprayman and David Crum at Prime Studio. From the moment when we first met Michael, Andrew and David in Austria, it immediately felt like we're on the same wavelength. We have the same approach on how to do our work, being it in the studio or being it building pianos. We love highest quality work, we love precision, and we really, really love overcoming challenges for finally getting to a perfect result. That's what we felt from the first moment we've seen the guys, and we knew, okay, working together with these people as a team is going to lead us to outstanding results, and we were very much looking forward at that time already to get involved in a project with them developing a virtual instrument based on the outstanding Ravenscroft 220 Grand Performance Piano.
When did you first meet the guys from Prime Studio?
We first met the guys from Prime Studio, I think it was in 2013. This was right after we had decided to sample our 9-foot piano. And part of that decision was a thinking that maybe we should record this in a world-class studio. So we began searching for studios. During that time, we found an article of a company who had purchased a famous Neve analog mixing board from Caribou Ranch in Colorado and installed it. And this just happened to be Prime Studio. So we contacted the studio. And the result of that was that we ended up taking a trip across the pond to Austria, where we met Gerhard and Bjorn, the owners of the studio there. And we just had instant rock with these guys. I mean, just amazing individuals, top of their craft. They care. They're just so passionate about what they do, which is very similar to us and our approach with the acoustic pianos. So once we met them, we knew that we had a couple of guys that would be just incredible to do a project with.
How did the project 220 VI get started?
After visiting the studio, their route took them to some other studios around Europe, and since then, we constantly kept in contact. Especially when staying in Anaheim, Los Angeles for Winter NAMM Show throughout the years, we've met them several times and finally got involved in their plans to do a virtual instrument production based on the exceptional sounding Ravenscroft 220 Grand Performance Piano.
Where did you first heard a Ravenscroft Grand Piano?
The first time I heard a Ravenscroft piano was at the NAMM Show in Anaheim, California. It was the year after Michael and David's visit to Prime Studio. At this show we had our own booth presenting our plugins, so Gerd and I couldn't visit the Ravenscroft booth together as one of us had to be at our own booth. So I went up to the third floor, the piano floor, and the first thing I saw in this so-called Area 57 was this really big Ravenscroft piano booth. It wasn't so much a booth, it was half the hall. Since Michael and David were both talking to customers, I looked around and found myself next to a Ravenscroft 275 about a foot away. At that moment, a skilled pianist touched these keys, and less than a second later, I got goosebumps, and not just on my arms. The sound and the resonance of this instrument drove through me mercilessly. I touched the side of the grand piano and I could feel every resonance, every frequency. I mean, I had a lot to do with grand pianos of all sizes and all brands during my career, but this beast was just incredible. Full, rich and brilliant in tone without appearing harsh in any way. Okay, that's what a perfect grand piano sounds like, I thought to myself, and stood there for a while, fascinated. I think Gerhard saw what was about to happen to him after I returned to our booth.
At the time, when we were at NAMM Show and we visited Michael and Andrew Sprayman at their booth, I was just overwhelmed when I saw the Ravenscroft 9-foot piano standing there while some great players were performing on it. I thought to myself, man, what is happening here? What a unique sound character, power, brilliance, precision. Simply stunning. I was totally speechless about the amazing finish, the precision of the craftsmanship the Ravenscroft 9-foot piano was built. And when I first sat in front of the piano and touched the keys and played a little with it, that was one of these moments you certainly have only once in a lifetime. While softly playing a few notes, there was such a resonance moving me and I immediately got shivers down my spine. I never had that feeling playing on other top performance pianos ever before.
Michael, you have decided to digitize the Ravenscroft 220 Grand Piano. How come you did so in Europe, in Austria?
Once we decided that we wanted to enter the digital marketplace by sampling our pianos, we knew that we wanted to do the absolute best that we could. And of course, the universe responded accordingly and opened up a lot of doors for us. One of those doors was we knew that we wanted to do the recordings in a world-class studio. And we started to search around. And eventually this search led us to a beautiful studio in the Austrian Alps in Mills, Austria, called Prime Studio. So the decision to do our 220 project in Europe, in Austria, at Prime Studio, has several elements to it. The first of which is the studio itself. The studio has an amazing room for our Model 220. It's the perfect size. It's perfectly designed for acoustics. The next thing is the equipment at Prime Studio. There isn't anything like it in the world, I absolutely guarantee it. These guys have a passion for historic analog equipment. I mean, to the point where they've acquired one of the original analog mixing boards from Abbey Road Studio in London. They have one of the original Neve boards from Caribou Ranch in Colorado. Not to mention the preamps that they have and the microphones. I mean, it's just some of the best equipment I've ever seen in a recording studio. But to me, the icing on the cake and if you will, the deal sealer has to do with the guys specifically at Prime Studio. Gerhard and Bjorn, the minute that we met them, we had grok. These guys are just absolutely incredible. And what we soon realized is that their approach to the business is a lot like our own. These guys focus on quality. And I mean, everything that they touch, they give 100%. And to have the opportunity to work with a team like this and to put together a project like this, it's literally like a once in a lifetime opportunity. So to me, it was a no-brainer. You know, once you put all of those pieces together, to have this exceptional quality studio, exceptional individuals, and to just have this opportunity to do the project with them, we absolutely said yes.
How can one imagine the development of a sampled virtual instrument?
Well, developing and producing a virtual instrument is a very time-consuming and challenging process in every meaning. Especially when working on a virtual grand piano with the goal to come as close as possible to the sound and feel of the original instrument. Choosing microphones, doing microphone placements, deciding which preamps to choose, and what signal chain to use, tuning and retuning the grand piano every day, meticulously sampling note by note, velocity layer by velocity layer is the daily routine for a long period of time. Until every nuance has been captured. As well, in parallel, the graphical user interface and the software scripting needs to be done. Later on, fine-tuning things during beta testing is also one of the very intense working phases during a virtual instruments production. And after some final quality checks before encoding the products, everybody gets super excited about launching the products and first market reactions.
You actually flew the Ravenscroft Model 220 across the pond. Tell us a little bit about that challenge.
Yes, indeed, that's a very delicate thing to do. First of all, you need to properly pack the instrument to keep it safe and prevent damages from like intense humidity or temperature changes, as well as from physical damages. Crating is a very crucial process too. Only specific woods are allowed to get used for crating when doing an international shipment. And the construction of the crate must be stable enough to safely carry 500 kilograms of musical instrument. Transportation to and from airports, organizing forklifts, manpower to move and place the crate at the right place during arrival. A lot of things need to be taken care of if you want to ship such a delicate beast like a grand piano.
What was the daily routine during the sampling process of the Ravenscroft 220 grand piano?
I think to understand the daily routine that we went through for the sampling project, it's important to understand the overall scope of the project. So, you know, to begin with, there's moving the piano to Austria. That's a pretty big deal unto itself. And then once the piano is there, the piano has to be prepped, action regulation, voicing, tuning. But then all the microphones have to be selected, positioned, tested, and, you know, that process in and of itself can take weeks because they have to deal with phasing issues, mic placement. And the most important criteria here is that you select mics and get them in the right place, have the piano in the right place in the room so that when the piano is recorded, it sounds exactly like the piano. And I can tell you from experience that this is really difficult to do. And by experience, I simply mean by, you know, having done a lot of recordings at different recording studios across the United States. And it's very rare that when a piano is recorded that it sounds exactly like itself. And this has a lot to do, again, with the room acoustics, the microphones, the equipment. But I would say as important, if not more important, is the engineer and the engineering staff. So we're very fortunate in Austria because Gerhard and Bjorn are just amazing engineers. And the setup process went very quickly and very smoothly. On a daily basis, now, you have to realize that a piano has 88 notes. So to sample the piano, you want to sample everything that piano can do. And to do this means literally recording every single note at 12 or more velocity levels, which are volume levels. And not only that, but pianos have soft pedals. They have a pedal that shifts the action over so that it's only hitting 2 strings instead of 3. So that's a whole nother set of recordings just for the soft pedal. Then you have recording with the damper pedal and half damper pedal and sostenuto pedal. So needless to say, just to record the piano, I think it took about 18 weeks. So the 18 weeks on a daily basis were, waking up in the morning in this beautiful fairyland of Austria, surrounded by the Austrian Alps. Oh my God, it's just absolutely gorgeous. I mean, you wake up with the windows open and the birds chirping and, go across the street. I was literally living right across the street from the recording studio. I'd go over and meet Gerhard and Bjorn. We'd have a nice cup of European espresso. Man, that stuff is so good. And then we'd start the day with me tuning the piano. So again, if you can imagine, we're tuning and recording middle C on a Monday. Let's say that we listen to the recordings and we decide a week from then that we have to re-record that middle C. Well, that middle C has to be at exactly the same pitch or frequency that it was when we initially recorded it. So obviously I want this piano to be represented on a recording that's going to be around probably forever, to be in super tune. So every day we would start by tuning the piano, and then as the guys are recording throughout the day, anytime there's a break, I would go in and check the tuning and clean up the unisons and that kind of thing.
Can you tell us a little about the technical side of developing the Ravenscroft 220 VI?
Developing and realizing the vision of a virtual instrument involves a lot of technical equipment and know-how of using it to achieve the planned results. The highest quality in every effort is absolutely mandatory. This begins while preparing, for example, Pro Tools sessions, choosing microphones, preamps, the signal flow, and last but not least, the digital clocking system. We used an Abendroth Everest 701 True Audio Master clock to capture the Ravenscroft 220 Grand Performance piano without compromise. We decided to go for a split recording technique, sending each signal of the chosen microphones to two different microphone preamps, offering completely different sound characteristics, and therefore a lot of patching was involved in the setup, as you can imagine. So there are quite a few things you need to be aware of before the real fun begins.
What were the key decisions you made before hitting the record button to start the sampling process?
Most important thing when preparing such an intense project of creating a sample library is to get every little detail organized beforehand. I'm talking about choosing the matching sample rate, bit depth, session file handling, labeling file names, managing disk space, checking gear, and of course signal flows. The better everything has been prepared, the more focused and relaxed will be the day when you first hit the record button to start the sampling.
How long did it take to develop and finalize the two brand new products you are going to release shortly?
I think it's safe to assume that most consumers don't realize how long it takes to do a piano sample project like this. From start to finish, the project can take up to 4 years. It's a grueling process because you might think that all you have to do is just record the piano and then presto changeo, you have an acoustic piano sample. But the recording process is just one piece of the puzzle. Now, granted, it's an incredibly important piece of the puzzle because everything that's done with those recordings is going to define how the program sounds. So, I mean, it's obviously incredibly important to get an exact duplication of the piano sound in the recordings. But from there, the recordings have to be scripted into computer software, and then everything has to be beta tested and refined. And it's the refining process that really takes the time. It's just the four of us listening and eventually employing an incredible beta testing team to give us feedback so that we would know where to look for artifacts or any issues. But yeah, it's just absurdly long how long it takes to produce a product like this and have it come out good.
During beta phase, who was involved to seriously give feedback and dismantle the VI in order to improve it, becoming the probably best and closest sounding VI compared to a real grand piano?
We were very fortunate to be able to assemble an international team of beta testers of highly skilled and discerning musicians. We had Peter Stauffer, Kirk Wilson, Matthew Pittman, Jeff Taylor, Phil Curry, and Nick Smith. And I got to tell you, man, these guys just did an awesome job.
What was the most challenging part of this project?
Well, one of the most exciting and also most challenging times was the beta testing phase. At this stage, the virtual instrument is being played and thoroughly tested by players who are welcome to completely dismantle everything you have done before. So this needs to be done in order to get rid of bugs that might be there and to go over things and fine-tune the instruments, preparing it for the final encoding.
What was most important for you to get covered by the Ravenscroft 220 VI when compared to the original Ravenscroft 220 Performance Grand Piano?
To me, the most important thing to be captured with our Model 220 was the reality of its voice. The 220 has an extremely broad dynamic spectrum. So I would say the most important part of the project to me was that the end product is a true representation of our Model 220, which the guys in Austria absolutely nailed, and I couldn't be more proud of it.
What do you think makes the Ravenscroft 220 stand out from competing products?
The Ravenscroft 220 VI is very different in many ways from other available virtual grand pianos on the market. It offers two fully sampled instruments captured with 11 microphones and two different microphone preamp characteristics, which can be changed over by the click of a switch. It gives unique playability by the maestoso functionality, which enables the virtual instrument to behave like a real grand piano when using the sustain pedal. The full decay length of every note in every velocity layer was captured to get as close as possible to the resonance and feel of the original Ravenscroft 220 Grand Performance Piano. Both full sustain and una coda sustain notes have been captured with full decay lengths. 3 different release note playing styles are offered, as well as additional staccato notes for experimental playing styles. The velocity curve is divided into 4 independent areas, which settings can be saved and recalled separately from the main instrument file. The Ravenscroft 220 VI has a unique feature to change and adapt the feeling of playing with different MIDI controllers called Soft Touch and Pure Touch. No looping techniques were involved like they are in many competitors' products.
Is it possible to come even close to the playability and feeling of a real grand piano by using a digital controller playing a software instrument?
It is possible to come very close to the playability and the feeling of a real acoustic piano with a digital keyboard and a software program. I think the challenge here is the coupling of the sound system and the digital keyboard in play. For a pianist, the sound and the physical playing of the action become one thing. They cannot separate the two. I can tell you as a technician that I've had times where an artist will tell me that they don't like the sound of a particular note. And then when I investigate further, it turns out that there's nothing wrong with the sound of the note, that there's something mechanical with the action. But because they can't separate the two, to them it's a sound issue. And the opposite is true too. They'll tell me that a note feels weird or a note isn't playing correctly, when in fact the note might be just a little bit out of tune or it might need some voicing. So the real challenge is the coupling of these two things. So the better the MIDI control keyboard is, the better chance we have of attaining this experience. On a side note, I can say that even a lot of the television shows that you watch that are music related, where you see an acoustic grand piano playing on stage, it's a grand piano that's been fitted with a MIDI pickup system that is in fact triggering a software program of a piano sample. This has a lot of advantages to their industry because the piano is always in tune. It's easy for them to control the volume. You don't have to worry about microphones and external sounds. There's just a lot of advantages. Now, will the piano sample and the digital keyboards, will they ever overtake the acoustic piano? No, this isn't possible. It's just on one level, it's an entirely different experience.
What can piano musicians expect from Ravenscroft pianos in the future?
We have a lot of exciting things happening here at Ravenscroft Pianos. In addition to our new 30,000 square foot Performing Arts Center, we also have a brand new build studio, which is where I am right now. And we're in the process of redesigning both of our models so that we can have all of our production here in the United States. So we're currently gearing up to press our first rim. So all of our cabinetry will be produced here in Scottsdale, Arizona. We're going to be casting our iron frames here in the United States. We have an action manufacturer who's doing our keys and key frames, who's in the United States. I'm really excited to be able to finally offer this all-American-made, unique acoustic piano.
What exciting new products can we expect coming from Prime Studio in the near future?
We're constantly working on new plugin and virtual instrument products. Feel free to follow us and subscribe to our social media channels so we can keep you updated about the latest studio and product news. Thank you so much for watching. See you soon at Prime Studio.